Hello everyone, welcome to yet another video lecture in accounting. So in this video lecture, we will discuss impairment of asset. So specifically, individual asset. Ayan. So, technical knowledge. So at the end of this video lecture, we should be able to know the basic principle for the recognition of impairment, understand the concept of fair value less cost of disposal and value in use, to know the determination of fair value, know the calculation of the value in use, the measurement of recoverable amount, the proper accounting for an impairment loss, and to know the recognition of reversal of an impairment loss. So, what is impairment ba? So, impairment is the fall of market value of an asset where the recoverable amount is now less than the carrying amount in the statement of financial position. So, accordingly, if the recoverable amount of an asset is now less than or below its book carrying amount, then the asset is said to be impaired. Okay? And the carrying amount naman is the amount at which an asset is recognized in the statement of financial position after deducting accumulated depreciation and accumulated impairment loss. So alam na natin kung ano yung carrying amount. Diba? That's basically the cost of the asset minus its accumulated depreciation. Okay? That's the carrying amount. Now, the standard governing the impairment of an asset is PAS 36. So the recognition of the impairment loss is covered by PAS 36. Okay? Which squarely deals with the impairment of asset. So the basic principle underlying the standard is relatively straightforward. Why? Because there is an established principle that an asset shall not be carried at above the recoverable amount. So hindi natin pwede uh, i-present sa financial statement ang asset at above its recoverable amount. Okay? So an entity shall write down the carrying amount of an asset to the recoverable amount if the carrying amount is not recoverable in full. Okay? So for example, the carrying amount of the asset is 500,000. Pero pag ibenta mo siya, okay, or the cash flow of the future cash flow of the asset is no longer equal to 500,000 na carrying amount niya, so technically hindi siya recoverable in full. So meaning the recoverable amount of the asset is below its carrying amount. So dapat i-write down natin yung carrying amount ng asset to its recoverable amount. So if the carrying amount is higher than the recoverable amount, the asset is judged to have suffered an impairment loss. So the asset shall therefore be reduced by the amount of impairment. So that's what we are actually talking about. So accounting for impairment. So in this regard, there are actually three main accounting issues to consider. Normally, when is there an indication of possible impairment? How to measure the recoverable amount, and when to recognize the impairment loss, or when and how to recognize impairment loss. So the discussion will be focusing in these three main accounting issues. Now, the first one, indication of impairment. So an entity shall assess at each reporting date whether there is any indication that an asset may be impaired. So, dapat there should be regular assessment, There should be regular assessment whether may mga indication ba na ang asset may be impaired. Now, if any such indication exists, the entity shall estimate the recoverable amount of the asset. Now, pag nakita nila that there are uh, indications na yung recoverable ng amount ng asset natin is already below its carrying amount, dapat we should measure, dapat i-measure or estimate yung recoverable amount. However, irrespective naman of whether there is any indication of impairment, An entity shall test an intangible asset with an indefinite useful life or an intangible asset not yet available for use for impairment annually by comparing the carrying amount with the recoverable amount. Okay? So accordingly, alam naman natin that our assets could be tangible or intangible. Now, in the case of intangible asset, kahit na walang indication of impairment, dapat regular annual yung testing no ng impairment no, of intangible asset. Dapat annually or every year. Okay? And the events and changes in circumstances that lead to an impairment may be classified as external and internal. So there are external and internal sources that the company or the entity may use to determine whether there is no, an impairment or there is no such impairment. Okay? So ano na ba yung mga external sources? So external sources are letter A, no? Significant decrease or decline in the market value of the asset as a result of passage of time or normal use or a new competitor entering the market. So technically, kapag yung market value natin or ng market value ng asset is nag-decline, technically, the recoverable amount or there, pwede siya maging indication actually of an impairment of the asset. Kasi kapag nag-decline yung market value ng asset natin, baka yung decline ng market value niya is below its carrying amount na due to some reasons, no? Obsolescence, may mga bagong competitor na yung asset nila mas high-tech. Okay? Significant change no, in the technological, market, legal, or economic environment of the business in which the asset is employed. No? So this could be as simple as change in customer taste. So kung nag-change na yung mga gusto, no, gusto ng customer natin. Kung noon, marami tayong customers, no? Kasi bago pa lang yung kumbaga business natin and the asset we use is, advanced that time. And this time, baka hindi na advanced yung asset na yan. So baka mag-change, no? Or there could be change, no? in customer taste. So an increase no in the interest rate, okay? Or market rate of return on investment which will likely affect the discount rate used in calculating the value in use. So later on, we will discuss what is value in use. The carrying amount of net assets of the entity is more than the market capitalization. So in other words, the carrying amount exceeds the fair value of the net asset. So pag compare natin yung carrying amount in the market value or fair value niya, mas mataas na yung carrying amount. So the market capitalization simply means the fair value of the net asset of the entity. Yan. Now, for internal sources naman, evidence of obsolescence or physical damage of an asset. So kapag obsolete na yung asset natin kasi may mga bagong technology na or may mga asset na improve no as compared to what we actually have right now, no? Significant change in the manner or extent in which the asset is used with an adverse effect on the entity. For example, the asset is part of the restructuring or held for sale or asset is in idle. So kung there are times na kumbaga idle or wala na ginagamit ang asset, evidence that the economic performance of an asset will be worse than expected. So for example, the undiscounted net cash flows from the asset are significantly worse than those budget, no? Now, so yun yung mga external at saka internal sources, okay, of kumbaga indicators that the asset may be impaired. However, these indications are actually not exhaustive. So meaning, pwede maghanap ng other ways or pwede mag-employ ng other methods ang entity to determine or to look for indicators that will prove no or that will actually tell whether the asset pa, the property, plant, and equipment is impaired. Okay? Yan. Now, how to measure the recoverable amount or measurement of recoverable amount? So after establishing evidence no, that an asset has been impaired, the next step is to determine the recoverable amount. Now, the question is, how to measure the recoverable amount or what is the recoverable amount ba? Okay? So, The recoverable amount of an asset is the fair value less cost of disposal or value in use, whichever is higher. Okay? So, dapat, uh, okay? So, dapat, i-compare natin, no? Ang fair value less cost of disposal at saka value in use. Whichever is higher, yun yung recoverable amount natin. I-compare natin yun siya sa carrying amount. Kung the higher amount ba is actually lower than the carrying amount, then impaired yung asset natin if that's the case. Okay? So, ano naman tong fair value less cost of disposal? So, fair value less cost of disposal. Unahin natin yung fair value. So, fair value is the price that would be received to sell an asset in an orderly transaction between market participants at the measurement date. So, kung at the time na nag-measure ka ng fair value ng asset or ng value ng asset, yung fair value niya is kung ibenta mo yung asset mo today, how much would you realize? Okay, or how much cash would you receive pag binenta mo yung asset mo at the measurement date? Okay, that's fair value. While cost of disposal naman, this is the incremental cost directly attributable to the disposal of an asset, excluding finance cost and income tax. So, kumbaga, pag binenta mo yung asset mo ngayon, ano ba yung cost na pwede mong ma-incur? Okay? Tapos yung cost na ma-incur mo should not include finance cost, no? And income tax expense. Okay? So that's cost of disposal. So here are the examples of cost of disposals. Okay? For legal cost, no? Stamp duty, and similar transaction tax, cost of removing the asset. Siyempre, pag ibenta mo siya, i-remove mo siya. So dismantling the asset, no? And direct cost in bringing the asset into condition for sale. So in simple term, fair value less cost of disposal is equal to the exit price or selling price of an asset minus cost of disposal. So meaning ba, kung ibenta mo yung asset mo ngayon, how much is the net cash na pwede mong ma-realize? Okay, that's the fair value less cost of disposal. So we have here the fair value hierarchy. So the fair value hierarchy, that's in accordance with PFRS 13, paragraph 72. So we have here levels, no? So ang level 1 is inputs are ito yung level 1 inputs, no? Ito yung quoted prices in an active market for identical asset. So the same as your asset or identical with the asset that you actually have right now. Ano yung value ng mga asset na yun sa market? Okay, that's level 1 input. The level 2 inputs naman are the inputs that are observable either directly or indirectly. So level 2 input includes the quoted prices for similar, iba yung identical at saka similar similar assets naman in an active market, or the quoted prices for identical or similar assets in a market that is not active. Okay? That's level 2 inputs. So sa level 3 inputs naman are unobservable inputs for the asset. So ito yung mga unobservable inputs. No? Unobservable inputs are usually developed by the entity using the best available information from the entity's own data. So ang mag-develop na kung walay level 1 and level 2, so the entity can opt to level 3 inputs. So si entity na actually yung mag-develop with regards to the fair value of the asset based on the best available data, okay, of the entity. Ayan. So that's how are you going to determine the fair value using fair value hierarchy. Now, ano naman yung active market and principal market? So when you say active market, ito yung market in which transactions for the asset or liability take place with sufficient regularity, meaning regular yung transfer ba? Regular yung transfer ng asset na yan sa market. Yung buy and sell ba? No? When you enter into that market, makikita mo yung regular buying and selling of that asset in that market. And volume to provide pricing information on an ongoing basis. That's active market of the asset. While principal market of the asset is the market with the greatest volume and level for activity for the asset or liability. So kung saan naman yung may pinakamalaking volume of transfer no, of that asset or liability, ang tawag naman ng market na yun for that asset or liability is the principal market. So market participants are the buyers and sellers no, in the principal market who are independent or unrelated parties, knowledgeable no, or having a reasonable understanding of the transaction, and they are willing no, or motivated and not forced or compelled. So they are willing to buy or to sell the asset or the liability. So hindi sila fino-force. So those are the market participants no in the principal market. Okay? Independent, knowledgeable, and willing. Now, we're done with fair value. Fair value less cost of disposal. Remember again ha, na yung recoverable amount natin is either the fair value less cost of disposal or the value in use. Whichever is higher sa kanilang dalawa. So value in use is the measured or is measured as the present value or discounted value of future net cash flows expected to be derived from an asset. So the cash flows are pre-tax cash flows. So ito yung ang cash flows na gagamitin natin in computing the value in use is gross of tax, meaning hindi pa natin siya kinuna ng tax, no? Tax consequence. And pre-tax discount rate naman yung gamitin natin. Okay, to determining the present value. Ayan. So again, value in use is the future cash flows, no? Net cash flows of continuously using the asset. So for example, yung asset mo, gagamitin mo siya for the next 5 years. So ano yung cash flows na pwede niyang ma-produce? Net cash flows sa cash in. Cash inflow minus cash outflow. So ano yung net cash flow niya in continuing for the continuing use of the asset, or kung gamitin natin siya for the next 5 years, ano yung net cash flows na pwede niyang ma-provide sa entity. That's the value in use. Of course, kung mag-run siya for 5 years, dapat i-discount natin siya. So here comes present value. Kaya meron tayong na-mention dito or sinabi dito na discount rate. Pre-tax discount rate. Kasi for example, kung cash flow niya is may cash flow siya this year, next year, next year, until 5 years from now, dapat yung cash flow niya next year, next year, until 5 years, dapat i-discount natin siya to get the present value of those future cash flows. Okay? That's the value in use. So kapag may value ka na or kapag may amounts ka na for the fair value less cost of disposal and the value in use, i-compare mo lang. Whichever is higher, yun yung recoverable amount mo. Okay? So, calculation of value in use. So, calculating a value in use calls for estimates of future cash flows, and there is the possibility that an entity might come up with over-optimistic estimates of cash flows. Yeah. So, the following should be considered in determining the value in use. Again, to prevent over-optimism in measuring the value in use. Una, cash flows projections shall be based on reasonable and supportable assumptions. So wag nating hindi dapat reasonable tayo in determining the cash flows that the asset will provide when we continue use the said asset. Okay? And cash flow projections shall be based on the most recent budgets. So dapat yung cash flow projection natin, it should be based on our most recent budgets on financial forecast, usually up to a maximum period of 5 years. Unless a longer period can be justified. And cash flow projections beyond 5 years period will be estimated by extrapolating the 5-year projections using a steady or declining growth rate. Such subsequent rate, unless an increasing rate can be justified. Again, ito yung 3 things that we need to look into in determining the cash flows that for the continuing use of the asset for purposes of determining the value in use of the asset. Again, to prevent over-optimism. Or again, para maging reasonable naman tayo in determining the value in use of the continuing use of the asset. Ito na, no? So, composition of estimates of future cash flows. So, estimate of cash flows include projections of cash inflows from the continuing use of the asset. So, kung ano yung cash inflows na pwedeng ma-produce ng asset when we use it in the foreseeable future. Projections of cash outflows necessarily included to generate the cash inflows from the continuing use of the asset. Of course, kapag may cash inflow na ma-produce yung asset, may cash outflow din siya na pwedeng gamitin. And the net cash flow, so technically cash inflow minus cash outflow. Received or paid on the disposal. No, iba-iba. So itong net cash flows na sinasabi niya dito, itong cash out inflow minus cash outflow, net cash flow na yan. Net cash inflow or net cash outflow. Pero ito namang net cash flow na sinabi niya dito is, ito naman yung net cash flow na pwede ma-receive or ma-pay or mabayaran kapag na-dispose na natin yung asset at the end of its useful life in an arm's length transaction. So technically, yung ini-estimate natin na cash flow of the asset is the cash inflow and the cash outflow for the continuing use of the asset and the net cash flow upon the disposal of the asset at the end of its useful life. Okay? That's the estimate of future cash flows of the asset for purposes, again, of determining the value in use. So, estimate of future cash flows do not include, it does not include yung cash flows relating to restructuring, cash flows on the cost of improving or enhancing the asset, cash inflows or outflows for a financing activity, and income tax receipts or payments. So, again, in determining the value in use, which is actually the cash flow of the asset, hindi natin sila ini-include itong restructuring or enhancement, improvement of the asset for cash flow related to finance activity and income tax. Okay? So, ito lang talaga dito. Ayan. Now, the discount rate. So, syempre, if the cash flow extends for more than 1 year, dapat i-applyan natin ang discount rate para makuha natin yung present value of the cash flow. So, the discount rate used in estimating future cash flows is the current pre-tax rate of dapat pre-tax rate siya that reflects the current assessment of the time value. This is time value of money and the risk specific to the asset. So, the discount rate should not reflect risks for which future cash flow estimates have already been adjusted. So, again, the discount rate is pre-tax, and it should not include or it should not reflect the risk for which future cash flows estimates have already been adjusted. So, kapag nag-adjust naman siya for future risk, so hindi na natin i-adjust yung discount rate na gagamitin natin kung yung cash flow natin mismo yung in-adjust na natin for for risks, future risks. Okay? Ayan. And again, isa pa yung discount rate natin, it should be pre-tax discount rate. So, recognition of impairment loss. If the recoverable amount of an asset is less than the carrying amount, an impairment loss has occurred. The impairment loss shall be recognized immediately by reducing the asset's carrying amount to its recoverable amount. And the impairment loss is recognized in profit or loss and presented separately in the income statement. So, yung impairment loss is a loss. So, deduction siya sa income statement. But the said loss is or should be presented separately. Okay? Illustration. At year-end, an entity has a machinery with the following cost and accumulated depreciation. So, may machinery siya na 5 million, cost, accumulated depreciation na 2 million. This is for 2 years na life niya. Yung useful life niya is 5 years. So, the carrying amount is 5 minus 2, that's 3 million. So, due to the obsolescence and physical damage, the machinery is found to be impaired. And the entity has determined the following information with respect to the machinery at year-end. So, yung recoverable amount of the asset is the fair value or the value in use. The fair value less cost of disposal or the value in use. So, as we can see, di ba, whichever is higher between the two, ito yung magiging recoverable amount. higher man si fair value less cost of disposal. So, ito yung recoverable amount niya. I-compare mo siya sa carrying amount, you get the difference, then that is the impairment loss. Okay? So, the carrying amount is 3 million. Ito yon. The value in, the recoverable amount is whichever is higher between the two, which is actually the fair value less cost of disposal. Mas higher siya, 2.4 million. So, ito yung recoverable amount niya, 2.4 million. So, 3 million carrying amount minus recoverable amount ng 2.4 million. So, meron tayong impairment loss na 600,000. Okay, kasi mas maliit na yung recoverable amount natin kaysa sa carrying amount. So, the entry is debit impairment loss, credit accumulated depreciation. Now, for 600,000. Okay? Yan. So, as simple as that lang, no? Ayan. So, this is, of course, no, to recapitulate. Ayan. So, note that the fair value less the cost of disposal is considered to be the recoverable amount. Again, kasi higher siya than the value in use. And note further that the impairment loss is adjusted through the accumulated depreciation. Di ba, as you can see, yung entry natin is accumulated depreciation credit. Of course, kapag mag-credit tayo ng accumulated depreciation, lalaki yung accumulated depreciation natin. O pag lalaki yung accumulated depreciation natin, liliit naman yung value ng asset, which in effect writes down the asset, no, to its recoverable amount. So again, this is in accordance with the European and American practice. Kasi PS 36 does not specify whether the impairment shall be credited to the asset directly or accumulated depreciation or accumulated impairment loss. So, wala namang problema yun, no? Whether accumulated depreciation or accumulated impairment loss yung gamitin natin. So long as the end point is that na-reduce natin or na-write down natin yung value ng asset, yung carrying amount ng asset to its recoverable amount. So, after the recognition of impairment loss, the depreciation charge for the asset shall be adjusted in future periods to allocate the asset's revised carrying amount, less its residual value on a systematic basis over its remaining useful life. So kapag nag-compute na tayo ng subsequent depreciation or depreciation expense, nakabase na siya sa 2.4 million na, no? Sa kanyang recoverable amount. So ito na yung basis natin for ito na yung 2.4 million na yung magiging basis natin for future depreciation. Okay? Yan. And accordingly, so ito na nga, no, 2.4 million na yung magiging basis natin for depreciation. So dahil may 5-year life, useful life, 2 years na yung expired, so 3 years na yung remaining useful life, no? So, yung 2.4 million na revised carrying amount niya, ito na yung magiging, i-divide na natin siya for the remaining 3-year useful life ng asset to get the annual depreciation, which is actually 800,000. That's 2.4 million divide 3 years. That's 800,000 na yung depreciation expense natin for the next 3 years na remaining useful life ng asset. We have here another illustration, no? So, on December 31, 2016, so an entity has a machinery with the following cost and accumulated depreciation. So, that's 60 million cost, accumulated depreciation na 20 million, carrying amount na 40 million. So, the entity believes that there has been an impairment of the machinery and accordingly determines its fair value less cost to disposal and value in use. So, the fair value less cost of disposal is determined to be 31 million. So, ito yung fair value ng asset less cost of disposal today on December 31, 2016, which is 31 million. Again, ito yung fair value less cost of disposal niya. Now, ang value in use, of course, kailangan natin i-compute kasi we have to compare it to the fair value. Whichever is higher, yun yung recoverable amount. Di ba sabi natin that the value in use is the cash flows, the net cash flow discounted for the if we continue use the asset. Okay? So for 2017, 2018, 2019 and 2020, ito daw yung cash flows ng asset natin. Okay? In the continuing use of the asset. So sa 2017 may projected 24 million siya na revenue, 2018, 2019 and 2020. Okay, ito yung revenue, cash inflow niya. Ito naman yung cost excluding depreciation. So ito naman yung cost estimated outflow, no, or cost of the continued use of the asset. Sa 2017, may cash outflow siya for cost na 10 million, 2018, 2019, and 2020. With a net cash flow. So, itong net cash flow natin, that's just revenue minus cost. So, ito, 14 million for 2018, 17, and so on. Ayan. So, of course, dahil 2016 ngayon, December 31, etong cash flows na to ay next year, no, 2017. Next year, up until 2020. So, dahil future cash flows ito, kailangan natin itong i-discount using the appropriate discount rate. Okay, para makuha natin yung present value of the net future cash flows. Ayan. So, the value in use is calculated by discounting the net cash flows at the appropriate discount rate. Okay? So, assuming a discount rate of 10%, so 10% gamitin natin, at the present value of the net cash flows is computed as follows. Ayan. So, ito yung, using the 10% discount rate, ito yung present value factor natin. So, present value of 1, no? At present value of 1 at 10% for 2 years, for 3 years, and for 4 years from now. Okay? So, ito yon, computed na siya, given na. So, multiply na lang natin sa ating net cash flows. So, 14 million times, multiply mo siya sa present value of 1, no? Ito siya. Okay? So, ito yung present value of cash flows, future cash flows in 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. So, total natin siya, then we should get 32,129,000 as present value of the net future cash flows, no, of the continued use of the asset. So, technically, ito yung ating tinatawag na value in use. Again, ito yung ating value in use. So, i-compare natin siya. Na i-compare natin siya sa ating fair value. Di ba yung fair value less cost of disposal natin is 31 million? Oh. Tapos yung value in use natin is 32,129,000. Whichever is higher, yun yung recoverable amount. O the higher amount is the value in use na 32,129,000. Ito yung ating recoverable amount. So to compute the impairment loss, the carrying amount natin is 40 million. O ito yun, 40 million, no? Less the recoverable amount na 32,129,000. So, yung impairment loss natin is the difference. That's 7,871,000. Okay? Ayan. So, that's our impairment loss. So, debit mo again, impairment loss, credit accumulated depreciation na 7,871,000 to recognize impairment loss. Okay? So, as simple as that, no? How to compute impairment loss. Now, reversal of an impairment loss. So, what if nag-record tayo ng impairment loss, tapos next year or in the future, tumaas naman yung fair value ng asset or market value ng asset, so i-reverse natin yung impairment loss natin. How to account for that? Okay? So PS 36, paragraph 114 provides that an impairment loss recognized for an asset in prior year shall be reversed. Okay, i-reverse natin siya if there has been a change, no, in the estimate of the recoverable amount. So pag na-estimate natin that the recoverable amount is higher na naman, no, as compared to the carrying amount, so the impairment loss shall be reversed. In other words, again, if the recoverable amount of an asset that has previously been impaired turns out to be higher, so again, to be higher than the carrying amount, the carrying amount of the asset shall be increased to new recoverable amount. So, ipa-increase naman natin yung carrying amount ng asset natin to its new recoverable amount, which is actually higher than the carrying amount. However, PS 36, paragraph 117, provides that the increased carrying amount of an asset due to a reversal of an impairment loss shall not exceed the carrying amount that would have been determined had no impairment loss been recognized for the asset in prior years. Okay? So, meaning class, yung gagawin natin dito is magkukompute tayo ng carrying amount ng asset as if hindi siya in-impair in previous periods. Okay, as is ba, mag-compute tayo ng carrying amount later. No? Kailangan natin i-compute yung carrying amount as if walang impairment loss na nangyari in the previous period. Yun yung gagamitin natin sa pag-compare sa increased carrying amount ng asset kapag nag-reverse tayo ng impairment loss. Kasi kapag nag-reverse tayo ng impairment loss, hindi dapat siya, the new carrying amount, the reversed carrying amount, should not be more than the carrying amount na nakukompute natin as if walang impairment loss, no? Na ni-recognize. Okay, so medyo complicated siya, no? In words, but we will understand that later. So the reversal of the impairment loss shall be recognized immediately as income in income statement, no? As income in the income statement. But any reversal of an impairment loss on a revalued asset, iba naman to, ibang case to. Kasi impaired siya, ang asset kasi dito revalued. So nag-revalue tayo ng asset tapos later on in-impair siya. So actually na-discuss na natin to sa discussion sa video lecture natin sa revaluation surplus, but we'll have to take a look at this one again, no? Ayan, later. So shall be credited to income in the extent that it reverses a previous revaluation decrease and any excess credited directly to revaluation surplus. Again, discuss natin to siya. But unahin muna natin ito. Itong nag-impair tayo tapos ni-reverse in the future periods. Okay? So we have here another illustration. On December 31, 2016, the statement of financial position shows the following balances. So 8 million cost, 1.6 million accumulated depreciation, 10-year ang useful life, 2 years na yung expired. So 2-year na pala yung age ng machinery. So may carrying amount na 6.4 million. 8 minus 1.6. Ayan. Now, on same date, the recoverable amount of the machinery is determined to be in its fair value less cost of disposal of 5.2 million. So ito daw yung recoverable amount ng asset. So technically, ang carrying amount 6.4 million, ang recoverable amount is 5.2 million. So may impairment loss. So 6.4 minus 5.2, meron tayong impairment loss na 1.2 million. So debit impairment loss, credit accumulated depreciation for 1.2 million. Okay? That is for December 31, 2016. Now, on December 31, 2017, so meaning class, 1 year later, after 1 year, the recoverable amount of the machinery is 6 million, indicating a reversal of impairment loss. Bakit kaya indicative to siya na reversal of impairment loss? Okay? Simple lang. Bakit? Kasi, kung makikita natin, for December 31, 2016, yung magiging value ng asset natin or revised carrying amount ng asset natin is hindi na 6.4 million but 5.2 million. Tapos itong 5.2 million niya, may depreciation pa to for the year 2017 wherein may panibagong recoverable amount na 6 million. So dapat itong 5.2 million natin, i-depreciate natin siya for 1 year. So pasabot, 5.2 million divided by remaining useful life na 10 minus 2, that's 8. Okay, so 5.2 million divided by 8, that's the depreciation expense for the year 2017, which of course reduces the 5.2 million carrying amount. Now, in this case, the maximum carrying amount of the machinery should be equal to the carrying amount that would have been determined had there been no impairment. So, yun na yung sinabi ko na magkukompute na kapag may reversal of impairment, dapat tayo mag-compute ng carrying amount, ito, as if walang impairment na nangyari. This one. Okay? So, the would have been carrying value or carrying amount on December 31, 2017 is computed as follows. So, dahil nga may reversal of impairment loss, kailangan natin i-compute ang carrying amount as if walang impairment na nangyari. Okay? Ayan. So, the machinery is 8 million, has 8 million cost and accumulated depreciation na 2.6 million. Now, bakit naging 2.6 million? Kasi that's from on December 31, 2016, 2 years na yung useful life, yung expired na useful life niya. Tapos 2017 man tayo nag-reversal. Okay? So kung 2017 tayo nag-reversal, 2016 to 2017 may another 1 year na may isang taon na another life ng asset. Okay? So pasabot 3 years na yung age ng asset. So pasabot i-depreciate natin siya for 3 years, no? So that's gonna be 8 million divided by 10, the useful life times 3. Okay, that's 2.4 million. Okay? Or, as you can see, kung ang 8 million, i-divide mo siya 10, that's 800,000 yung depreciation niya every year. Makita na to class niya, kung 2 years na yung expired na life niya, so 800,000 times 2 mo ng 1.6 million iyahang accumulated depreciation dire. Okay? So, dungagan pa nato another 800,000 mo nang natay 2.4 million nga accumulated depreciation dire. That's 1.6 million plus another 800,000. That's 2.4 million. Or 8 million divided by 10 years useful life times 3 years, that's 2.4 million. Again, gina-compute nato ang original carrying amount ng asset or ang carrying amount ng asset as if walay impairment nga nahitabo. Tungod kay magamit nato ni siya for purposes of the reversal of impairment loss. So the carrying amount of the asset now on December 31, 2017, where the impairment loss reversal occurred is equal to 5.6 million. That's 8 million minus 2.4 million. That's 5.6 million. So ito yung would have been carrying amount of the asset had there been no impairment loss recorded in 2016. So accordingly, the recoverable amount of the machinery is 6 million. So on December 31, 2017, 6 million yung recoverable amount niya. Yung carrying amount would have been carrying amount niya in 2017, okay, originally, no, again, would have been, no, the would have been carrying amount niya is 5.6 million as computed. So, eto na. Accordingly, the carrying amount of the machinery cannot exceed 5.6 million. Okay, so hindi siya pwede mag-exceed ng 5.6 million, di ba? Kasi again, kung meron tayong panibagong recoverable amount, that's 6 million, on December 31, 2017, hindi siya pwede mag-exceed sa 5.6 million na would have been carrying amount on December 31, 2017. So, ito yung purpose bakit nag-compute tayo ng 5.6 million would have been carrying amount on December 31, 2017. Okay? Kasi, ang panibagong recoverable amount natin is hindi pwede mag-exceed sa 5.6 million na yan. Okay? So, ayan. So, therefore, the carrying amount of 5.6 million is the basis of the impairment reversal. So, itong 5.6 million na na-compute natin, ito na yung magiging basis ng impairment reversal natin at hindi yung panibagong 6 million na na-compute or na-determine na recoverable amount. Okay, as you can see, ano bang purpose ng 6 million? Eh kung 5.6 million lang din naman yung gamitin natin. So, yung purpose lang ng 6 million na yan is that is just an indication na there is reversal of impairment loss. Again, that is just an indication of a reversal of impairment loss. Okay? Ayan. Pero kung sa pag-compute, as if lang kung na-compute natin yung carrying amount ay, let's say, 6.2 million, compare natin siya sa 6 million, o yung recoverable amount natin is 6 million. Okay? Kaya dito, yung na-compute man natin na carrying amount is 5.6 million, o yung recoverable, yung panibagong carrying amount natin or recoverable amount natin should not exceed 5.6 million. Okay? Ayan. So, the carrying amount with impairment on December 31, 2017 is determined as follows. So, eto, i-continue natin to class, no? Katong na-impaired na carrying amount in 2016. Di ba, ang basis talaga natin sa depreciation is the 5.2 million man. So, ano naman, unsa man yun, ang 5.6 or ang 5.2 plus kani 5.6, ano lang yan siya, mo lang na siya ang limit sa atuang sa atuang bag-ong recoverable amount na dapat di siya mag-exceed sa 5.6 million. Pero sa ato ang libro, ang bag-o gyud niya carrying amount is 5.2 million on December 31, 2016 and mo ni siya atong basis for another depreciation sa uh, December 31, 2017. Okay? So as you can see, yung machinery natin, again, may 8 million na accumulated depreciation on December 31, 8 million na cost ng machinery, original cost, no? Accumulated depreciation on December 31, 2016 is 1.6 million. Malagikan si 1.6 million. Ang ginaistoryahan nato diri December 31, 2016 ha, 1.6 million. Ang nagikan kani mo ni siya. Plus kaning impairment nato nga gi-record nga 1.2 million but added man sa accumulated depreciation. So ito yon plus 1.2 million. So the total accumulated depreciation on December 31, 2016 is 2.8 million. So 8 million minus 2.8 million kaya meron tayong adjusted carrying amount of the asset niya 5.2 million. On December 31, 2016 yan. 5.2 million. Di ba maoni siya? Di ba maoni? No? Ayan. Now, ang kanang 5.2 million on December 31, 2016 mo na basis sa depreciation sa 2017. Di ba may 8-year remaining useful life tayo? So, ang 5.2 million, i-divide natin na siya by 8. So, ito ang depreciation for 2017 is 650,000. So, the adjusted carrying amount of the asset on December 31, 2017 with impairment is 4,550,000. Now, that's 5.2 new carrying amount minus 650,000 depreciation for 2017. So, the carrying amount on December 31, 2017 is 4,550,000. Again, that is the carrying amount on December 31, 2017. 4,550,000. Diba, ingon man ta nga iyahang recoverable amount is 6 million. Pero dapat, di siya mag-exceed sa 5.6 million. So, pasabot, atong recoverable amount is 5.6 million. Mauna atong i-compare sa 4,550,000 to get the impairment reversal. Okay? So, to record the depreciation for 2017 muna, as computed at 650,000. So, ito yon na entry. To record the impairment reversal naman, class, is carrying amount, 4,550,000 and the limit sa recoverable amount ng 5.6 million. So, carrying amount, 5.6 million, limit of the recoverable amount, 5.6 million minus carrying amount ng 550,000 per book. So, ato ang reversal, which is gain on reversal of impairment, is 1,050,000. Okay? That's 1,050,000. Kaya meron tayo ditong debit. So, i-debit nato sa accumulated depreciation. Kasi reversal, 1,050,000. And a credit on gain on reversal of impairment, 1,050,000. So, makita natin siya sa income statement. No? Ang gain. Ayan. Okay? So, that is reversal of impairment. Again, to recapitulate, ang bag-o na to nga carrying amount on December 31, 2016 is 5.2 million. Mao na itong basis sa depreciation expense sa 2017 nga 650,000 kanang 5.2 million. Okay? Kaning 5.6 million diri is mao nitong gipadayon nato ba? Gipadayon nato nga pag-compute sa carrying amount as if wala impairment. Dili na ma-record sa book kaning 5.6 million. Basis, gi-compute lang ni nato sa as basis or as limit sa recoverable amount. Again, as a reversal of impairment loss. Na dapat ang bag-o nga recoverable amount dili mag-exceed sa 5.6 million. Okay? So, eto na yung recoverable amount natin, 5.6 million. So, gi-compare nato siya sa tong carrying amount ng 4,550 as computed here. So, natay reversal as gain, recorded as gain na 1,050,000. Okay? So, I hope that's clear, ha? Ayan. Now, revalued asset. On January 1, 2016, the revaluation shows the following. So, ang asset daw ito. So, nahitabo ng revaluation sa asset. No? So, machinery. Ayan. Ito yung cost niya, 5 to 3 million carrying amount. Ang replacement cost niya is 8 million. Accumulated depreciation of replacement cost 3.2 million. Tapos yung sound value is 4.8 million. So ito yung appreciation. So to record, that's gonna be a debit to machinery, credit accumulated depreciation, credit revaluation surplus. Kani. Okay? So 31218. The depreciation in 2016 is of course based sa 4.8 million. So 6 years remaining useful life kasi 10 years useful life, 4 years ang expire. So 4.8 million sound value divided 6, that's the depreciation, 800,000. The revaluation surplus is also transferred through piecemeal realization to retained earnings, di ba? Yun yung na-discuss natin. That's 1.8 million divided mo siya by 6. Ayan, 300,000. Transferred to retained earnings. So, ato ang revaluation surplus is na-balance nga 900,000 na lang. 1.8 million minus transferred to retained earnings nga 300,000. 1.5 million na lang yung balance ng ating revaluation surplus after on December 31, 2016. Now, pagka 2018, December 31, so pila ka years nang nilabay, that's 2016, 2017, and 2018. So pagka December 31, 2018, 3 years after revaluation, an impairment of the machinery is indicated or indicative and the recoverable amount is 1,050,000 or gross replacement cost of 3,500,000. That's 1,050,000 divide din mo siya by 30%. Ano man yung 30%? That is the ratio of the remaining useful life nga 3 years. Kasi diba in 2018, 3 years na lang ang remaining useful life sa asset compared sa 10 years ng useful life. So 3 divide 10, that's 30%. So ang sound value nga 1,050,000, that is 30%. So to get the replacement cost nga 100%, i-divide mo siya by 30%. So nakuha mo siya, ito siya. No? 1,050,000 yung carrying amount or recoverable sound value, divide mo siya by 30%. So meron tayong 3.5 million na replacement cost. Sabot, atong accumulated depreciation, 70% of 3.5 million, that's 2,450,000. So ito yung decrease natin kasi impairment of revalued asset. Remember, di-revalue ang asset nire. Pag abot diri na-decrease so na-impaired siya. So, muna itawag na impairment of revalued asset. No? Ayan. So, ang mahitabo, makita nato nag-decrease ang cost by 4.5 million. No? That's 8, 4.5. Okay? Kaya, there is decrease. Nag-decrease po ng accumulated depreciation by 3,150 and the carrying amount of the asset has decreased to nag-decrease siya by 1,350,000. Okay? So we have here machinery, 8 million. Accumulated depreciation on December 31, 2018 is based on 8 million na cost niya. That's 8 million divided 10 years times 7. That's 5.6 million. So yung carrying amount as of December 31, 2018 is 2.4 million. Di ba ang recoverable amount is 1,050,000. No? 1,050,000. So pasabot na yung impairment loss nga 1,350,000. Mao ni siya. Ani. Now, remember nga itong revaluation surplus is di ba 1.8 million yan. Ani, aning record na to diri 1.8. Di ba mo na itong revaluation surplus 1.8 million. That is on January 1, 2016. January 1, 2016 to December 31, 2018, that's 3 years. Pasabot, 3 years nag-piecemeal realization tayo ng ating revaluation surplus to retained earnings. Diba? So, pasabot, 1.8 million divided by remaining useful life at the time nag-value tayo na 6 times 3 years nga nilabay na from 2016 to 2017 and 2018, that's 3 years. So, naanatay na-realize nga revaluation surplus nga 900,000. So, ang balance sa itong revaluation surplus on December 31, 2018 is 900,000 lang. That's 1.8 revaluation surplus minus realized or transferred to retained earnings through piecemeal realization nga 900,000. So, napatay 900,000 nga revaluation surplus balance on December 31, 2018. Now, ang kanang impairment loss na to nga 1,350,000, dili gid na sa loss tanan. Ano man, i-apply sa nato na sa remaining balance nga 900,000. The rest, mo na tong loss. So, you have here, the journal entry. Decrease accumulated depreciation by 3,150,000 kani. Tapos, i-close na to ang revaluation balance of the revaluation surplus kaya nag-impair magkata sa revalued asset. So i-close na nato ning revaluation surplus balance na 900. Okay? So mo ni siya debit. I-credit na to ang machinery for 4,500,000 kani. Ayan, i-decrease nga 4.5 million. Tapos, impairment loss na ng 450,000. Asa gikan? Kani, katong na-compute ni impairment loss 1,350 minus balance sa revaluation surplus. Kaya atong impairment loss nga i-record is 450,000 lang. Okay? That is impairment of revalued asset. That is how you do that. Whenever you impair a revalued asset or there is impairment of revalued asset, the computed impairment loss should first be applied to the balance of the revaluation surplus. Any remainder balance shall be debited to impairment loss. In this case, that's 450,000. Ayan. Now, last, no, reversal of impairment. So, gibali na po. Ang impairment, gi-reverse. In 2019, there is a reversal of impairment related to machinery. On December 31, 2019, the recoverable amount of the machinery is 1.2 million now, and the replacement cost is 6 million. That's 1.2 million divided by 20%. Ayan. The remaining useful life is 2 years as a ratio of 20% to the total 10-year useful life. Di ba 10 years man yung useful life ng asset natin? Okay. Di ba ang nasa to ang libro karon is kanina man kaning cost. Mo naman ni adjusted in 2018, no? December 2018 mo na ni ang recorded na to 3.5 million to 450 and then 1,050,000. Sound value or carrying amount adjusted. Now, pagka January 1, 2019 or December 31, 2019, ang recoverable amount of the machinery is nahimong 1.2 million. So, katong gi-impair na to, gi-reverse na po na to. So naman ni. Ayan. So, that's per book, ang machinery natin is 3.5 million. Ang accumulated depreciation is 80% na. Okay, kasi sa 2009, December 31, 2018, di ba, 3 years naman rin nabilin nga useful life. So, pagka December 31, 2019, 2 years na lang ang useful life remaining. O, that is 20% na lang ang nabilin. Pasabot, ang accumulated depreciation natin is 80% na, which is 2.8 million. So, 3.5 minus 2.8, the carrying amount is 700,000. Di ba sabi natin that the recoverable amount has climbed to 1.2 million. Ito. With replacement cost nga 6 million as computed and 4.8 million as accumulated depreciation. So there is increase in fact, no? So nag-increase by 2.5 million yung cost, 2 million yung accumulated depreciation, and 500,000 na net increase of the value of the asset. Kasi carrying amount per book is 700,000, 1.2 million nga replacement cost, so na-increase nga 500,000. Remember class nga, continuation pa ni siya ani nga problem. Okay, continuation pa ni siya. Ang nahitabo ani kay ang asset gini-value. Tapos gi-impair. Ipaubos. Tapos gipataas na pod. Reversal of impairment, no, kasi nadako na pod by 1.2 million. So ang nahitabo to record the annual depreciation, di ba? Ang annual depreciation nato based man yun na diri sa 1,050,000, di ba? Kasi mo naman yung adjusted balance. Divide man natin siya by 3, so tag 350,000 ang depreciation natin. So that depreciation expense, that's 1,050,000 divide 3 years remaining useful life atong January 1, 2019. So for the year 2019, 350,000 atong depreciation. Okay? Tapos to record the reversal of impairment, that's gonna be increase, decrease, increase by 2.5 million. So, debit machinery. Okay? Tapos, accumulated depreciation, increase by 2 million. Now, kung kaning 500,000 nga net increase, i-apply muna nato na siya sa ato ang na-record din ng impairment loss. Di ba, nag-debit matag impairment loss on, di ba, entry money on December 31, 2018, kani. By 2018. So kana kaning increase nato diri class nga 500,000, ang gain ana is 450,000 equal sa kaning impairment loss nga gi-record nato in 2018. So sa 2019 ang increase i-apply muna natin sa impairment loss. So pag baliktad kasi reversal of impairment man mo to tong mag-gain. Gain on reversal of impairment. It's 450,000. 500,000 man ang net increase. So 500 minus 450 ang net increase classes, dito na siya padung sa revaluation surplus. So nga, 50,000. Okay? So, ang hitabo, gi-revalue, tapos gi-impair, tapos gi-reverse na po pataas. Diba? So, ganun yun. Okay? So, that is impairment of asset. Impairment of individual asset yan siya. Okay? Yan. So, the indicated entries in 2019, mawa ni siya, di ba? Okay. Bisig, abin yung lahi na siya. Maura ni. Ibalik lang diri Ayan. So again, PS 36 paragraph 120 requires that the reversal of an impairment loss on a revalued asset. So kung gi-revalue ang asset, tapos gi-impair, tapos gi-reverse na pod, it shall be credited to income equal to the amount of impairment loss previously recognized and the remainder to equity or revaluation surplus. So katong gi-record na natong impairment diri pag-reverse daw ani, paudo ni ang amount sa tong gain. Ang kung napa daw exist sa net increase niya, for example ito 500,000 ang napa daw exist mao tong i-credit sa revaluation surplus which is 50,000. Okay? So that's it, no? Again, that's for impairment of individual asset. So another video lecture will be provided, no, for impairment of cash generating unit, group of asset na naman tayo. Okay? So that's it for impairment of individual asset, and I hope, no, na-meet natin yung ating technical or we now have the technical knowledge as listed, no, at the very beginning of this video lecture, and thanks for watching.